Business Takeout presents
The Cocktale Hour with L.A. Wade.
Hey, welcome to the Cocktail Hour, everybody. It's your girl. This is L.A. Wade. And today I am so happy to have Miss Francine Joseph here with us. But before I introduce her, I just want to talk to everybody out there about Business Takeout. They are the ones that present the Cocktail Hour to everyone. And basically, it's a wonderful platform that educates, inspires, and empowers Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. So welcome everybody to the Cocktail Hour. We have a lot of sobering yet intimate conversations with our guests. And today is no different. So today we are speaking to Francine Joseph. Francine, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Where do I begin? I am a mother first and foremost, and you see the happy birthday balloon behind me there. My daughter's turning 5 tomorrow. I can't even believe it.
Wow. This also marks how long I've known you.
Yeah,
5
exactly.
years.
5 years.
Wow.
So yeah, she's my heart. And a big part of the reason why I jumped into entrepreneurship. And I am an entrepreneur. I'm an insurance advisor and recently just became affiliated with a local restaurant in the Toronto downtown core area. So I am a business manager for that restaurant. It's a Haitian food restaurant. And really, just really passionate about entrepreneurship and helping other entrepreneurs succeed, especially during these times. And I'm also a financial literacy advocate. And that's, what pretty much started my entrepreneurship journey when I was on mat leave pretty much 5 years ago. And here we are
So
today.
you weren't into the financial world prior to 5 years ago?
No, so my background is in HR and marketing and public governance. So I worked in the corporate sector for like 8 years with two major global firms. One is a wealth management and a financial investment firm, and then the other was like one of the top four advisory, consulting, and tax firms. So I worked for those two firms for 8 years consecutively, and then I realized that corporate just wasn't for me.
Like many of us. All of our
Yeah.
entrepreneurs are like, yes, leave it.
I kept trying to climb that ceiling, but I kept getting blocked due to so many different reasons. And you know what? They just kept taking and taking. And I said, you know what? Let me transition into public sector. So then I moved into public sector. Working for the federal government for a few years. And even that, like, it was eating away at my soul slowly. And I'm like, this can't be my life for the next 25 or 30 years.
This can't be my life.
No, it cannot. So I just have a thirst for like knowledge, learning, and expanding my skills, and also just helping people in general. So I knew I wanted to do more with the skill sets, that I learned throughout my career in corporate and public sector. And I'm not saying a 9 to 5 is bad, or I'm not trying to downplay it. Like, if you're smart, utilize it for what you can. Take the skill sets to grow your own self, to transfer it to, your passions and what you're passionate about, right? And so that's essentially what I did in those years that I worked in private and public sector. And then literally on my mat leave, they weren't accommodating me because I'm a single parent, right? So they weren't going to accommodate a part-time schedule for me. And at that point, I realized, you know what? Let me just have faith and trust the process and step out. And here we are today, 5 years later.
Amazing. That's amazing. That's a cute little journey, but we're going to get a little deeper. I just want to shout out to Faces by Pureness, who is watching, I think, on Facebook. Big up to all the people on Facebook and YouTube Live and all those in LinkedIn. We see you. We're happy to have you here. I can't see even with my glasses on. So when you say a comment, hopefully I'll be able to notice who it is that's speaking. Now, I want to take a little bit of a journey and break up a little bit about what you were just talking about, because you seem already so multifaceted just in your approach to corporate, public sector, private sector, entrepreneurship. But let's go back, because how I know you is your drive for business and money. And so I wanted to ask a simple question in the beginning, or maybe not so simple. When you were growing up, what was your relationship like with money? Were you always like a hardcore saver kind of person, or were you spending all the time? What was your
Not
relationship?
at all. Not at all. I wasn't a hardcore saver at all. I think my relationship with money started when I was 6 years old.
What?
Yeah.
I'm in trouble if that's the case.
It started when I was 6 years old. I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than I was. So when I was six, she was probably about 9 or 10. And she had a paper route, right?
Okay.
Um, so, you know, those mornings that she would go on the paper route, and I don't even know, how much she got paid, but she would take me, when she got paid, she would take me to the corner store and we would buy treats and stuff like that. So I automatically knew money equaled stuff.
Things.
Things. Right, exactly, right? At 6 years old, right? And so what I started doing at 6 years old was collecting rocks. And I would go door to door, convincing my neighbors to buy these glow in the dark rocks for like 25 cents.
Glow in the dark rocks, and you were slinging rock at 6 years old, is what you're saying. you had the drug dealer mentality at 6 years old. It wasn't the rocks that you smoke, but
It wasn't that rock, no. But they were colorful rocks that you found at the beach. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what would they go for?
They would like, how you had your lemonade stands and stuff like
Yes.
that. They would literally, they saw me trying to do my thing, get candy or money for the candy store or whatever it was, and they would support it, and
That is amazing.
that was my introduction to, working,
And you were 6?
hustling. I was six,
Was
yeah.
this also mirrored in the home with your parents or something?
Well, at that time, I didn't really understand. Like, I knew, my parents went to work, they came home and stuff like that. But it was just literally my sister's paper route. Every Sunday, after her paper route, we would go to the store and get candy. So I knew that, like, listen, I want my money too, so I can go to the store and get my own candy, right?
Do
So
you remember when you first like asked somebody for money for a rock and they gave it to you? Do you remember what
I
that
was
was
just
like?
like, I do. It was like my immediate neighbor, and I was friends with their kids and stuff like that. So they're just like, "Oh my God, we'll take 5. Yes, here you go." And I was just
Wow.
like, "Oh my God," right? So, and
Wow.
and those are the skills that I'm transferring over to now my 5-year-old, right? Like every time she gets money from the grandparents or anybody, we put it in her piggy bank. And I tell her when it gets to $100, we go to the bank and we
Right.
deposit it, and so I'm teaching her how to count money from coins to like dollar bills, right?
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
in terms of, it's funny that you brought that up, because that's a great transition for you being an insurance advisor. And I'm learning so much from you as I go along in my own process,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
how much like insurance is tied to aging, and how you said that opening like a universal insurance policy for our children, even as young as 5, is
Mhm.
actually a really great thing to do. Could you speak more to that?
Of course. Yeah. Like, as soon as my daughter was born, I tried opening a policy for her. I had complications with my pregnancy and she was actually born 3 months early.
I
So as a result of that, they actually denied her because she was premature.
Oh,
And they said,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So, if you have, it's two things, it's your health status and your age, right? So, but yeah, the
That's what
early
determines insurance.
that's what determines, yeah, insurance and your insurability, basically,
Okay. So
right?
as a premature child, they would not insure her, because if she did, there was a higher chance of her passing away, thus you
Well, there was
getting
just a
a
higher liability, a higher risk, because also too in the first 3 years she had some lung complications. She had asthma. So, and she was literally in the hospital every year for the first 3 years of her life, right?
Aw.
Yeah,
Well,
but she,
thank God we're celebrating 5 years of her life.
I know, like God is great.
Amazing.
So,
Wow.
so yeah, so they so initially they denied her, and I have a nephew, they're about 6 weeks apart, and my nephew got approved and she didn't, right? So, I was a little taken back, but I understand it and I understand the liability there. And this is why I tell parents, like, if you have kids or even for yourself, the earlier you can get insurance, the better, because you never know in terms of a health risk or a health matter, like what is going to come, right? So they wrote us and they said, when in like 5 years, well, at the time it was like in 3 years we can reapply. So I think that's when she's going to be 6 or 7. So I'm
Right.
definitely going to be reapplying for her because I want to lock in her rate as young as possible.
I
So
see.
that way, the cost of her insurance for when she's 6 is going to still be the same cost of her insurance when she's like 60. you
Oh,
know?
wow. Oh, really? So the earlier you start, whatever it is that your health and the plan that they
Right.
give you is locked in for the amount of time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and
Okay.
that is a major benefit because with a universal life. So let me just back up. There's like three types of life insurances. You have your term, and then you have the permanent. On the permanent side, there's the whole life and then the universal life, right? Whole life is what older generations are used to and know of, and universal index life is more of a recent type of life insurance that's been around for maybe 20-25 years, right?
And that's the one you say you can make money in as well, right?
Well, it's an investment for both, right? But with whole life you're guaranteed a death benefit and also a cash value. With universal life, you're guaranteed only a death benefit. However, the cash value that accumulates in the universal life policy is based on what your regular, your market index market funds. So like your mutual funds, whatever, is following the market, whatever type of mutual funds or other funds you're invested in. So that's where there is a risk, right? Because with any type of investment, there's a risk, right? But naturally, if we go outside today in today's, environment, there's a risk for us to get COVID, right?
This
So
is true. Is
yeah,
that
so
affecting insurance rates?
it is. In the last
Oh.
in 2020, we definitely saw a rise across the board with insurance rates. And the good thing with me is that I'm an independent insurance advisor, so I work with about 6 or 7 different insurance companies as opposed to just one. So I'm really there on the client side to basically tailor and their needs to the type of insurance that would best be suitable for their situation, their circumstances, and their financial situation as well.
Okay, well, let's have some fun here
Yeah.
because my girl Abby Iola from Niger Wise of Toronto has also got online here.
Okay.
Hey,
Hello.
sweetie pie. And everyone knows on the show that this woman can't stop having children. She has 6 kids. Like she
Oh
gave birth
wow.
to 6 children and
Wow.
still looks like a Barbie doll.
Oh my
So
goodness. What's her secret? She has to tell me.
yeah, you could just follow her. You'll be able to see.
I
And first of all,
will.
I'm just putting it out there for her. She needs a cosmetic endorsement because she's stunningly beautiful. And she needs it to help pay for all of her kids' insurance.
I'll definitely be following her. Hi, Abby. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, so she has a range of children in terms of age.
Mhm,
The youngest one being like just months old.
mhm,
And so how would somebody who has 6 or even 8 kids with because they're she's married and there was 2 other children. So
mhm,
there's
mhm,
8 children. What is the
mhm.
best approach that you would give to somebody with a lot of children in different age groups? What's the approach?
You know what? To be honest, like I look at my daughter's life insurance universal policy as just her like RESP, her savings, right?
Right.
You can insure a child as little as 15 days, right? So
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah, and it in that case, it can be as low as like obviously depending on the coverage amount, but you can insure them as low as like $25 a month.
So
right?
each of the children, $25 a
Well,
month.
depending on their ages, right? So the younger they are, the less contribution that's going to be made into a policy. The older they are, like I have clients that have kids who are 13, and I think they're paying, for 100,000 or 200,000 coverage, they're paying like $40 a month, right? So
Okay.
it's equivalent to like buying a coffee a day, right? But obviously, if you have 6 kids and you're trying to cover yourself as well, there's blended policies, there's different options. You can add children on as a rider, and with riders for insurance, if they're a rider is like if the parent has an insurance policy, then you're adding a children or a child rider to be covered, so they don't have their own policy, but there's still coverage there. And I think the maximum for a rider can be like up to 100,000, right?
Okay.
So that rider option is definitely there, and it's much more affordable for families that have a lot of kids. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is to cover each child in case something unfortunately happens to any of the children. Do
Yes.
they look at it with
And then the other thing with riders, sorry, just to interject, is
sure.
that you can cover the whole, like the 5 or the 6 kids under that one rider for one cost, right?
Okay, so they can have their husband and wife could have their own policy, and then they can have a rider that covers all of the 8 children.
Right, exactly.
And then there's just like a one fee for the rider.
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah.
see. And then everyone gets the same payout, I guess, if unfortunately something happens. And that's what we think of. We think of
Well,
insurance
riders
as
on children are usually less, right? So they're not the full coverage amount that the parent would have. And then the other thing too is that with riders, the children drops off at age 18, right? And then at that point, the child is now become an adult and then has to get their own policy, which is why I don't really recommend riders unless, again, there's a family of like with 6 kids and they can't afford to insure each individual child. So I
right.
mean, some coverage is better than none, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what are the advantages? Okay, so because I think of insurance and I think of it's there if something happens to me, either I
Mhm,
become incapacitated or I die.
mhm,
But you have also talked about ways that it can make money for you.
mhm.
I don't understand. How does that work?
Yeah, so the concept that we're used to thinking, just like you mentioned, is that life insurance is only a death benefit. And in the last 8 years, I've had my policy that I have now for the last 8 years. And when it was introduced to me, it literally blew my mind, right?
Blow my mind, blow our minds.
So, how it was explained to me, and then as I got into becoming more of an advisor, I learned, the different investments. So every company, you have your mutual funds, like you have Fidelity, you have TD, all those financial companies have investments within their company, right?
Yes.
And they say, sign up with TD or sign up with Fidelity with an RESP or get a mutual fund, right?
Right.
Or open a TFSA. And so all those are the RESP, the TFSA, those are vehicles that hold your investments, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Life insurance is also a vehicle that can hold your investment. So the life insurance vehicle, unlike the TFSA and the RESP option, because it's within a life insurance policy, it has tax advantages. And that tax advantage is that basically when you go to as your money grows, so you'll have investments within a life insurance policy. My investment portfolio within my life insurance policy, I have a TD dividend fund in there. I have a Fidelity fund in there. The Fidelity fund is doing pretty well. I think last year it did like 26%.
So these are all insurance
These are
products.
mutual funds within the insurance.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're literally taking your insurance policy and playing with it within mutual funds on the market. Is that
Yeah. So there's 2 buckets. Let's say you get a life insurance policy, a UL, Universal Life. It costs you $100 a month, right?
okay? Mm-hmm.
So that $100, depending on your age, a part of that, let's say $30 of that is going to go to the cost of insurance.
Okay.
Okay, that $100 is going to be your contribution for X period of time. Okay, it's usually until 65, but then you still have the coverage
For your
life.
whole life. That's
Yeah,
why it's called whole life or
right.
universal life.
Universal life. It's permanent but universal.
Okay.
And then so let's say $30 goes to the cost of insurance. $70 every month of your contribution is going to investments.
Okay.
So there's compounding interest there every single month that's growing at like whatever the market is doing that you're invested in. So if I'm sitting with a new client, I do a market risk portfolio with them, assessment with them, essentially, just like a financial advisor would at a bank when you're opening up a TFSA or RESP.
Okay.
To find out your risk tolerance, right?
Mm.
And based on how a client answers those questions, I then put them into maybe a mix of 3 to 5 funds, investment funds, to be invested as part of their investment portfolio that's within their life insurance. Does that make sense? Oh, I can't hear you. I'm just typing in the chat right now.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
It's all
So you were
good.
saying.
I don't. Oh,
Okay.
the investment part. Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, you're invested in mutual funds, but it's within, the life insurance policy. And so in the universal life policy, there's no guaranteed amount. It's based on what the market valuations are from year to year. Last year, if you were invested in the market, either, through um, a financial institution or private investment firm or even life insurance, TFSA, what have you, you would have known, hopefully, the market did really well last year across the board. There were double-digit returns. So if you
Wow.
were invested, a lot of my clients, based on how they were invested and how we kind of diversified their portfolio,
Yes.
they saw like double digit returns anywhere between 15 to 20%.
Oh, wow. So you can take this money out and
And
it's
by all means, I'm not saying that that should be your only vehicle for investing, but in these times, money is very tight, right? Families, inflation is at an all-time high, and families are in a position where they have to choose between feeding their family and maybe saving for their retirement.
yeah, I was just about to ask you about the saving for your retirement thing because, as I get older, this becomes something that I'm thinking about. But to your point, I should open insurance policies for my children because they too will get older and they don't think about it. We don't
Right,
think about it. Here I am, an older
right.
woman, and I'm only now really
Yeah,
taking it on, right?
yeah.
And so, in terms of aging, I think you had told me before about various things to consider to people who are aging, especially for parents? If you're in that age group where your parents get older.
Long-term care. That's
Okay.
something we don't think about, right?
Yes. So are you thinking about it?
I am. Both my parents are retired. I'm thinking about it. So I have older parents. They're both retired. So as I'm thinking about it for them, it automatically then triggers in my brain like, okay, well, I only have one child, right now.
Right.
I may only have the one child. And what steps am I going to take now to lessen the burden for her when she's older? In terms of my long-term care needs, and those are things that, especially within our community, we don't really think about, especially being Caribbean, of Caribbean heritage. Our parents are just like, you better not put me in no home, right? And that's that. But
Right?
then
That's
there's
not
so
happening.
many other
I think that's
factors.
African too. You're not putting the African family in a home either.
Right. So, but then, okay, we're not putting you in a home, but you still we still have our lives, we still need to care for our kids even as they age. We still have our own personal lives. And now we're in the middle of now taking care of our parents as they age, right?
Yes.
So it's really putting a crunch on our demographic, to be able to provide that care that our aging parents and generation will need as they get older. And I have a lot of friends that are starting to really consider that. Like, we were talking about it. I was talking about it on the weekend with another friend of mine. His mom is like not even 80 yet.
Right.
But she's definitely physically slowing down. She needs more care. So they're talking about bringing a personal support worker in, right? To help her maybe, 3-4 days a week.
I think that's a good option.
It is a good option.
Yeah,
It
because
is.
we're not throwing our parents into a home, but we're saying, yo, I have to work too. I have my own children.
Of course.
This person can come in and help support in other areas, hence personal support worker.
Right. And so, just factoring that cost in, because the cost of healthcare, especially, we see what our healthcare system in Canada is going through, the strain that it has, the amount of healthcare workers that are leaving the profession just because it's so stressful now.
Right.
And not enough kids are doing the skills, are going to school to be a nurse to replace that gap.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be shortages in the next 10 to 20 years.
Wow.
And how is the government going to fill that gap? Well, guess what? They may have to move into a US model and privatize
Healthcare. So when us
areas.
Canadians always like wagging our tail and everything at the Americans, like we got free healthcare.
Yeah.
You're saying that ultimately that could be coming to an end.
I mean, don't quote me, but I think the writing is definitely on the wall, right? And so these are things that we have to consider, you and I, people in our age group, mid to late 30s and 40s, definitely have to consider, because we're in that middle ground where we're caring for our kids, but we will soon be also caring for our parents, right?
So if healthcare did become privatized, how would our insurance policies help us in that kind of scenario?
Well, if you ask people that live in the States or go back and forth between the States and Canada, I've always heard that the privatized healthcare is actually better healthcare.
I've actually heard this too. Yeah. I know that there are some people online right now, AWs from the US, and Mike Ampa, our good friend, he goes back and forth all the time between Canada and the US. So I do hear that, because if you're paying for your healthcare, you're going to get what you pay for.
Of course, there's a standard there that they have to maintain, they have to upkeep, and you're paying for it, right? So, and even with our benefits that we have here, yes, general standard healthcare across the board is free, but look, the government is making so many cutbacks. Like for me, in the last 3 years, I've dealt with a lot of health issues. Specifically, I'm very low iron, so I'm officially like anemic, right?
Right.
So I found out, I was on a list for a hematology clinic for 1 year. Okay,
Wow.
before I actually got to be seen in the clinic.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's part of your health coverage. You wait for what you got.
Right, exactly. So had that been privatized, I would have been seeing by a clinic or a hematologist clinic right away. But because it's not covered, I had to wait 1 year.
Okay, but some of the negatives I would think in a situation like that would be, the elephant in the room, so to speak, is if you can pay for it, then you get the care. What happens to all of those people who I don't know if the US is, I'm sure they're experiencing it with even COVID. They had to like fight to make something available to people to see if they even had COVID.
Right. So that's where, oh
Hey,
my,
Mike.
um, that's where, ensuring that even if you're putting aside like $20 a month for those future needs
Yeah.
that you're starting today when when you're younger, when your salary is, basically you're at your pivotal period of earning potential, as opposed to starting when you're 50, 60 and you're working less, so therefore you're making less income. But hopefully at that point you're invested properly so you can start living off of your investments. But
Right.
not, and I see it with my friend, my parents' friends, our family member, our not family members, but our friends and family that are older, that maybe perhaps, when they were in their 30s, they were told to get term insurance. Get term insurance and invest the rest, right? But they didn't invest the rest, or the way they invested the rest wasn't matching inflation. So in fact, like, 30 years later now, their term insurance ended. They're uninsurable. They're supporting
Oh
kids
my
at home,
gosh. So if
right?
you're on a term insurance, you want to get it switched over as soon as possible, especially if you're healthy.
Don't get me wrong, term insurance is definitely, has its benefits and advantages, right? Um, Personally, I have both, right? Because I have a young child and I don't own a property here in, Canada. So I made sure to get as much as insurance as I could to basically equal $1 million, which is the cost of a home in Ontario, right?
Right, right.
But that whole the whole amount that I have, so I have 750,000. That whole amount is not a universal or permanent insurance, right?
I see.
250,000 of that is a 20-year term,
Okay. You
right?
also
And
spoke about it as a liability versus an asset.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. You
So
can speak to that after.
okay, no problem. Yeah. So, and especially no now, finding out that, well, early on when I found out that my daughter wasn't insurable, I was like, well, I should increase my insurance amount, right?
Right.
So I do have both. And, if you're a homeowner anywhere, in Ontario in the States, term insurance is good for covering your mortgage. So that
So
when
like
you
the
own a
term of your
home,
mortgage would be
right. So I was just gonna say there is mortgage insurance that the banks offer, right? But with mortgage insurance, as your mortgage goes down, the insurance does not go down,
oh.
right? So you're still paying that same amount. Let's say if you got mortgage insurance at 500,000 when your mortgage is at 100,000. Is that fair?
No.
No.
That doesn't
Exactly.
make sense actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak to this because we're on the long-term care and the aging parents thing. I just think about how many of our parents didn't really pass on that information about investing and how to deal with money. And I think if you could give a message to a bunch of older people, so people that would be seen as our parents, um, if they have equity in their home, if they have a way of helping their children now purchase a home, is that something that you would suggest? Or do you,
Definitely.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how, maybe explain that process, because I think a lot of them are afraid to be aging and taking out equity in their home in order
Yeah.
to help their children purchase
Yeah.
a home.
Yeah, I see that now in my family too. Like, the older generation, they're just sitting on their home. They purchased their home 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when the cost of a home was like less than quarter of a million dollars, right?
Right,
So 200,000,
right.
300,000, and the evaluation of those homes now are like a million point
Millions of
two.
dollars.
Yeah, yeah. And they're just sitting on it. And so I always, if you have equity like that in your home and you have younger, not younger kids, but kids in our generation and they're not homeowners yet, you are doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to pass on generational wealth to allow your kids and your kids' kids to be able to generate wealth. And the only way to do that is if you are invested, if you were able to invest in a property, specifically real estate, to take out some of that equity, because really and truly, the cost of a home back then is the down payment now.
Right? I think my mom bought a condo at 124,000, and because of where it is, it's worth like 500 or 600,000
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And her concern though is, one, she wants to make it fair for myself and my sister,
Yes,
and two,
definitely.
she wants to ensure her long-term care because she doesn't
Mhm.
want to burden her children. She's so
Right.
sweet, but
Yeah.
like, she's not burdening us, but she doesn't understand how to leverage the equity
Yeah.
because she thinks
I
she has
would
to pay
definitely
out more.
recommend speaking with like a mortgage advisor, mortgage
And an
specialist
estate
on that.
planner as well.
Estate planner for sure. And these are all services that I can provide, right? So
Amazing.
yeah,
So
so
how do
I
people reach that? Just because we're talking about it, if they wanted to reach you, how would
yeah,
they
for
find you?
sure. So my all my social media platforms are freedom.with.fran, or people can email me at info@freedomwithfran.com. I'm available on Instagram, Facebook, an email, and I have my business number. Should I plug my business number?
Sure. If
Okay.
if Banky can do it up, Banky can do a lot of things, but sometimes she likes to program it in advance.
Oh,
She's a stickler, but you can say it for sure.
sure. It's 647-795-4700. So
Yeah.
you can text me on
And we
there.
can say it again at the end of the show.
Yeah, for sure. And then a big part too with that is the education, right?
Yes.
I'm also able to provide free financial literacy workshops, which are basically, they give you the foundation. So, and that's where, a lot of people lack. Like, just people in, especially in this day and age, there's so much information out there. You, especially moving into from from a brick and mortar to a click and order. Like, we're moving more online, right? So you have cryptocurrency, you have NFTs, blockchain. There's so
The
much.
metaverse.
Metaverse. There's so much, right?
Yes.
But it's our workshops really just break it down to simple language and simple numbers for people to understand, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so when I think about investment portfolios, we've been talking a lot about insurance, and I want to know why you chose insurance, number one, but also with all of the other ways of investing your money, what was it that said insurance is where I'm going to go first and then maybe real estate after? Or how do you begin to diversify, and how much money do you need to begin to diversify your portfolio?
So there's various ways people can diversify their portfolio, their investment portfolio. We talked about mutual funds, right? We talked about real estate. That's a big one. But again, it's also there's a huge barrier to entry just based on the cost of homes now in Canada, right?
Yes, or
Specifically on
everywhere, really.
yeah. So that's a very big barrier to enter. The other alternative ways, insurance. And um
Did it just seem friendlier to you? What?
well, it's also a way to create generational wealth. Like, for example, look at Master P and the legacy, he's built,
Yes.
and he's also leaving behind for his kids and his kids' kids, right? Like, he started his empire from his grandfather's $10,000. Well, I don't know if it was a $10,000 insurance policy, but he got $10,000 from the insurance policy from
I
his
see. Right.
grandfather passing away.
Which you wouldn't think is very much for someone's
Right?
life, but
Exactly.
it's a start.
Right. And so maybe he had 100,000, or maybe the grandfather had 500. I don't know, but Master P's portion of that, he was left as a beneficiary $10,000, and he turned that $10,000 into a multi-million, almost billion-dollar empire today, right?
How did he do it? Can we copy him?
Well, he's an entrepreneur, just like you and I. And as entrepreneurs, you have to have you have to have drive, you have to have ambition, you have to have a vision, you know? So my vision for me is not just through my insurance platform, but it's also impacting families, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I always tell you when me and you have conversations, have I added value? Right? Did you get value from the workshops? Because that's my legacy. You know, my daughter, having my daughter is a legacy, of course. But what I want to be remembered for is adding value and positive value to people's lives, right?
Right.
So and insurance allows me, the platform that I work with allows me to do that. And again, though, I have my hands in kind of various different projects. Like I said, I'm also working with two small business owners who run a Haitian restaurant. And what drove me to uh, want to be a part of that was their passion and their drive to want to make an impact and also make a difference, and a mark on Haitian culture in Toronto.
Are you Haitian?
I'm not Haitian, no.
And so that's even more interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so Haitian culture, yeah, they have more of a presence, I would think, in Quebec. So,
Yes, they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
so bringing that to Toronto, what has been the most interesting aspect of working with that community and helping other people integrate, a different way of being into their everyday?
The biggest impact for me, in terms of my experience in working with the restaurant and the owners, their is learning about the culture of Haiti. Right, it's the first Black independent country, right? And through their history and their story and their struggle, um, I've learned that, like, honestly, we talk about Black History Month is coming up,
That's right.
and we talk about Black history specifically in Black History Month, but really and truly, a lot of Caribbean countries, countries period, wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for Haiti,
Right.
right?
Talk to it. Talk,
Well,
explain it.
I'm not an expert in that. That's what I'm learning, right? But so through the restaurant and my involvement in that is bringing that education to the forefront, right?
Yes.
Allowing the culture to be told, basically,
Yeah,
through art.
absolutely.
I don't
Yes.
know. Have you ever been to Bukan?
To where?
Bukan. That's the name of the
No,
restaurant. So
no.
their restaurant is very vibrant. It has local artists. Local artists have their art in the
I
restaurant.
think I've seen you promote that, and I think I've promoted that as well because you've had art sales or something there.
No, we haven't had art sales. We just allow local artists to promote their art
I love
that's
it.
aligned with the culture of the Caribbean and also Haitian culture.
Yes.
And so and it's very vibrant. Like as soon as you walk in, you feel such a warm, welcoming presence, you know? And not to mention the food is amazing. It's pretty much like Haitian street food. So it's all fried good stuff,
Oh
but
boy.
it's like root food, right? Like you're dealing with your cassava, your plantains, so all
Right.
of that, right? So it's really good. But again, it's going back to the passion, the drive, and the vision, right?
Yes, which is what you look for in working with someone. But I
Yes.
think that what is not being spoken about are your skills and your skill set to be able to put it into different avenues. Like you say, you introduce yourself as an insurance advisor and working as a business manager for this restaurant, but there are certain skill sets that you have that enables you to do something like that because you know I might be into insurance, but that doesn't mean that I can run a restaurant.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
where did that come from? Like what are the skill sets that you need to be looking at for something like that?
So with the restaurant, it's just honestly, you need technical skills in terms of numbers, um, financials, you know, understanding financial plans. But also there's the people aspect, right? It's really people connecting to the restaurant, right? Or to
Right.
the people that are a part of the restaurant. So you need people skills, you need to be collaborative, you need to be, especially in these times, actually how I came on board was as a community collaborative community and collaboration advisor. So when the first lockdown happened last year in
Right.
March, the restaurant had to shut down for 3 months. All restaurants, right?
Exactly.
And so I said, let me come on board. And I know a lot of people that at that point they started like online businesses selling whatever it was that they were selling.
Right.
So I curated a list of small business owners that aligned with the concept of Bukan to be able to allow a pop-up space for the business owners to be able to market and sell their products in the restaurant while the restaurant closed down.
Oh, wow.
So it started out as a 6-month, what you would call it, like a 6-month contract.
Yes.
And essentially they saw through that my skill sets. Like I said, I have, his background in HR, marketing, and public policy. So I've also developed, they want a franchise. So I've also developed HR policies for them, restaurant
Okay.
policies.
So you're just like a superwoman. So where you went, this is what you took in school.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
HR marketing.
yeah. So so the next thing for you is an MBA then. Is that it? I mean, it sounds like you've already kind of created your own version of it, but through practical experience.
Yes, I have. And funny you mentioned that. I am, I'm always looking to grow my skill sets. And so I've actually registered for a certificate program to become a retirement specialist.
Okay.
So I'm going through that right now. And then maybe, in the next 5 years, the MBA might come along. Who knows? But
Okay. So
yeah.
you've made it sound like you've had a pretty, you knew at 6 years old that you need to sling rocks, and for those of you just joining, she didn't really sling rocks. She actually chose rocks on the beach and then sold it or something like that.
Yes.
But was it always so smooth? Because I think you had an interesting time with cryptocurrency. You mentioned it, and I always am fascinated by it because people are on this crypto train so much, and I'm sure there's lots to gain from cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all. But what was your journey? Because it started earlier.
Yeah,
Do you wish you still did it?
In 2016, I got introduced to cryptocurrency, and that's when it was like really, really good. If there was a time to get into crypto, I'm not so much following that world right now, but if there was definitely a time, it was definitely 2016, right?
Yeah, because you were super pumped. You were always
I
like,
was, because I
look
was
at
learning
this,
something new.
So what changed?
Well, cryptocurrency in itself is very volatile. And when I made the decision to basically leave my full-time job and transition into a life insurance advisor, there was a potential conflict of interest there, right? I wasn't licensed in crypto, but I myself was just, investing myself,
Right.
right? And then I was also through my knowledge of me learning at the same time investing, I offered an educational seminar. So I invited like um, a cryptocurrency. She actually has her own coin called Guap Coin. Her name is Tavonia Evans.
Okay.
So I flew her out from Atlanta to come to this workshop that I was facilitating back in 2017, I believe. 2017?
I
No,
think it was 2017. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was the moderator of that, and then so we had a panel of about 5 people, and I genuinely was just interested in the space, in learning more, and having women, and more importantly women of color, learn more, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's a
that
thing.
was an opportunity, and it still is.
It's still a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely an area of opportunity for people to diversify their portfolio. But I also did lose, right? As I was invested, I made money and I lost money. And like I said, it's very volatile. And the fact that it's not regulated, it's not a regulated industry yet.
Right.
It will be. I know it's coming,
That
and it's
almost seems like a contradiction, because I think one of the selling points that people say in regards to crypto is that it isn't regulated.
yeah,
Some people really, promote
yeah,
the fact that it isn't regulated
yeah.
because you can be in control of, but at the end of the day, we don't really know what we're doing.
Right, right. So I encourage people that are invested in crypto, don't put your whole life savings in crypto.
Yeah, have some maybe
Yeah,
that
for
you're willing to
sure.
lose maybe.
Exactly. Put only the amount that you're willing to lose. And if it's a matter of choosing between investing into crypto and opening an RESP for your child, or opening a life insurance policy and you have a child, do the life insurance policy, do the RESP. Okay, if you don't have an emergency savings of at least $5,000, you don't need to be investing in crypto. Please don't.
Right. No, I get that. And you bring up an interesting point, because you think about long term. And if you're thinking about long term, cryptocurrency might be a great long game for our kids. So in the same way that we open up an insurance policy for our children, if you have $100, $200 that you want to put into a crypto wallet for
Exactly.
your kids, just let
Exactly.
it be there. But don't think of
Right.
it. Maybe make that a little piggy bank, a version of a piggy bank.
Yeah, yeah. And then the big trend that I saw last year too, like when they were laying off a lot of people, people were sitting at home bored, not doing anything. So, you had people that were working 9 to 5s, whatever, now
Right.
becoming swing traders, right?
What are swing traders? Is it like swinging with your partner?
Not quite. Not quite. No. But it's like day trading basically, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but that is also too, like, if you have no experience in that, and like, for example, opening an account with Quest Trade, right? And you're trade day trading on Quest Trade. No, people like you and I can do that,
Right.
right? Because Quest Trade allows the platform. But people like you and I, not to negate the fact that there's so much knowledge out there and we can learn, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, you want to learn before you earn.
Right. That's a good one. Learn
So,
before you earn.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So crypto could be quite volatile. And if you don't know what you're doing and you're not dedicated to doing it, full
Putting
time,
in
but
the
even if
work.
you are, I find that like there's
If
still
you
no guarantee about what that is. And anyway, it's a long-term investment. It's not something short-term. And I think what people that are looking for a way of making money, what they're really saying is that they want a way of having cash flow. And so what is the difference between like investing for long term versus investing for cash flow, and how do we do that? Is that
so
a tough one?
you ways to invest in increasing your cash flow is investing in yourself, right? Learn a
Mm,
skill, right? Instead of putting money into crypto or stocks, doing day trades, yeah, of course, that is a skill, right? But
yes.
actually take a legitimate course,
Right.
before you're just kind of blindly going in and learning with your own money, which you can lose right away, right?
Right.
So, um, learn a skill set that will allow you to earn more money, earn more cash flow, increase your cash flow. Sell
That's great
something,
advice.
create something, create art. Like,
Yeah.
those are ways.
Tradespeople, artisans. We
Yeah,
we really don't we underestimate the power. I think I posted today one of my photographs of a construction worker who was waiting to
trade.
do something, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a trade that no matter what's happening, there's always
Do
building
you know how
happening.
much plumbers and HVAC people make? Like,
Yeah,
that,
exactly. And even if you're prissy, then go to law school, because that's also a trade.
right,
What you're
exactly.
doing is also a trade.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
People can
that,
join me and become, we can become business partners.
yes.
I do this business pretty much full time, but I'll let you know that after about 2 years into my journey through entrepreneurship, I did get a part-time opportunity, right? So I actually do work part-time as well, right? And
Wow.
so, like, I'm
You're
not
Jamaican,
knocking.
aren't you? You have like how many jobs?
Not quite. No, I'm not. But listen, I love money and I love to buy things, right? So
So you have to, yeah, you got to pay for those. Yep.
yeah,
Just
exactly.
like when you were 6.
Exactly.
So how people are with their money when they're younger, it can change though through education.
It definitely can. I'll tell you, you mentioned, with our parents, I always quote Oprah, when you know better, you do better, right? And
Hopefully.
when hopefully, yeah, that's the intention, right? But my mom, she worked in the banking industry before she retired for like 40 years, right? Back home where she's from, Guyana. And then when she moved to Canada, she worked for like National Trust and TD, right? I can say that because she's retired now, right?
Yes.
So so she was exposed to banking her whole life. But
Wow.
did she actually learn concepts within her job? Did she take workshops or whatever within her job
Right.
to transfer those skill sets to her kids? And I'm not saying it was her fault because
No. We're
her
trained.
job, she went to work, she did a job to provide, put a roof over, our heads to feed us, right? That was her grind for
Right.
like 30 years. And I respect her like to this day. As much
Right.
as she gets on my nerves, I will always, love my mama for grinding it out because I couldn't do that personally,
Right.
right? But she did it with 2 kids. And so my point was she was actually working in a financial institution and she didn't know how to make her money work for her,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So when I was 14 and I got my first official job, what she did was there was a TD literally across the street from us. She brought me to the bank. We opened up a bank account for me for my direct deposit to go through, and she's like, make sure you save,
Yes.
and this is your bank account. The teller gave me my card, and at that point, like when I was 14, I was making almost $15 an hour.
Oh, wow. I think
And but
I think I had my first job around 13, 14. Yeah,
yeah,
in a video store.
yeah. But tell me to this day, like I look back and I'm like, I don't own a home. I'm not a homeowner. Um, do I have any like and I look at that as like a real asset, like a real
Yeah, like do I
accomplishment.
have real assets,
Yeah,
not
and
just liabilities?
unfortunately, I'm not saying that that's not gonna happen because let me tell you, this year, 2022, I am going to either be an investment, owner or
Bring
property
it in, bring
owner,
in the
you know.
manifestation.
But really and truly, like I've had, and in my own financial journey, I've had 2 consumer proposals in my 20s, right? And 2 consumer proposals, one right out of college, and then the other just as I like 29 turning 30.
Right.
So it's my experience, through my experience, that I've learned how to manage money, and also now being exposed through my platform, through the financial literacy workshops. I think the first real big aha moment for me was actually when I sat down with my insurance advisor, who's also my mentor, 8 years ago, and he explained how my policy is going to work. And I can retire now because of this policy at like 50.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yes.
exactly what I choose and I want to happen and will happen. Right.
Yes.
So,
I'm glad you're saying this because I like to ask people about what they thirst for,
yeah.
and it's very clear that you want financial freedom. Hello, freedom with Fran,
Hmm.
and you want that for other people,
I do.
and you want
Yeah.
it to be generational.
Yes.
So, but
Truly.
with all of that said, what else could you possibly want in this life, and what are you doing? When I say the word sacrifice, what does that mean to you? Because you said what it meant for your mom. What does it mean for you?
Well, sacrifice means, putting in late nights. Yesterday, I work around the clock, and unfortunately, that means that I don't have much time with my daughter, but she sees me. She knows that when I'm in this room in my office, it's work time,
Yes.
right? Whether it's on the clock or my own business, right? And
Right.
this sacrifice that I'm sacrificing the time, because again, as a single parent, it's much harder because you don't have that other parent there to kind of,
Yeah.
juggle,
It's hard. Yeah.
right? But I'm very blessed and thankful that I have a supportive family. I have
Yes.
both parents in my life that are very involved in the, as well as myself,
And the
and
co-raising, right?
the
I
co-raising.
always say that we're single mothers, but we're not sole support mothers.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
because we have each other, and I'm grateful for the support that you provide to me, and I hope that I am a support to
Oh,
you.
you
And
are.
yeah, thank goodness, because what a waste if it
Yeah,
wasn't.
no,
Like
no.
when you
And
think
and
about
that's so
people.
important to have like
Yes.
a village, your core village that really has your back. Like I remember, one of the episodes when my daughter was in the hospital, I posted a picture and you messaged me right away, like, can I bring you anything? Can I bring you food?
Yes.
Like, and those are the points those are the things, the memories that I have in my mind that will always stay with me throughout my journey. And that's why whenever it comes to a project with you, LA, or any ideas that you throw at me, I'm there, right? like,
Thank
okay, first
goodness.
let's talk about it. But yeah, I'm there. I'm open ears.
Yeah, no, you're a blessing, and from one single mother to the other, I wish you continued success. And how again can people reach you as we sign off?
For sure. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Business Takeout NLA, for allowing me this platform for this hour to share a little bit of my journey. It's been such a, as I'm talking about it and reflecting back, like I'm kind of getting emotional myself.
Right.
But people can find me again on social media platforms, freedom.with.fran. And my email is info@freedomwithfran.com. And I really like, my vision, my passion is to help families create generational wealth for generations to come. um you know from moving from paycheck to paycheck to like leaving your bills on auto pay, right? When you can leave your bills on auto pay, you've come a long way, right? And not have to
Financial
worry.
goals.
So
Seriously.
so yeah, you guys can connect with me even if you have questions, if you want to, sign up for the free workshops, the free financial literacy workshops. I'll make sure that we get that going. And thanks again.
Yeah,
I
thank
really enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank you to Business Takeout. They are a not-for-profit social enterprise that seeks to inspire, educate, and empower Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. Please donate to us so that we can keep giving you this kind of content. And it was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure, to share this cocktail hour with you, Francine.
Oh,
See,
thank
see you
you.
next week with my Niger Wife women. I can't wait. That's going to be a blast. We'll see you next Monday.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.